We're coming now to our next term. We are approaching the letter O. Here, other modernisms. That's the term we will talk about. Mahy Mourad will talk about it now. Mahy Mourad is a Cairo-based architect, researcher and designer. She teaches architecture design studios at several universities in Cairo. She received her master at the University of Stuttgart in 2014 and went on to found Studio 39 in Cairo, a multidisciplinary design and architecture research studio. Her research focuses on modern urban and architectural developments in Egypt, particularly those of the 19th and 20th century. Welcome, Mahy Mourad.
Hello, thanks Stefan for the introduction and for the invitation. Today I'm glad to talk about modernism produced outside the European context. And I'd like to start by the notion of heritage in Egypt, which is, until very recent, was closely linked to the Pharaonic, Coptic or Islamic heritage. And this was until the late 80s when a conservatory approach was broadly expressed toward the modern heritage. In Egypt's modern history, the great deal of emphasis is placed on the key political events when it comes to aesthetic production. When it comes to the aesthetic production, it's closely linked to three distinct political situations. The hybrid aesthetics produced during the British Mandate under the capitalistic production, and further the functionalist aesthetics produced under the socialist state, and the recent postmodernism produced under the liberal stage. Interestingly, the modern architecture in Egypt started at the early 20s during what's so-called the liberal age. This is a timeline depicting some important milestones along the neoliberal age. When it comes to the hybrid aesthetics, during the British Mandate, the architecture production was mostly produced by the private enterprises. The image here is representing the historic part of the modern Heliopolis neighborhood, founded in the year 1905 by the British engineer Baron Impan, who have assigned European architects to realize this modern neighborhood, which I personally was born and live in. It was also the master's thesis of me here in Stuttgart. During this period, the adaptation of the Arabescent style, and by Arabescence here, it's also another term for the neo-Moorish style. It was brought about by the Heliopolis Company through European architects, basically Belgian, French, and British, who introduced European design concept adapted in decorative vocabulary and architecture style that are inspired by the Islamic and Arabic culture and desired by the country's elite and also the foreigners who were residing in Cairo during this time. And here I'd like to quote a quote for the renowned architect Hassan Fathi, who have described Heliopolis that it was held up as an example of a happy marriage between the West and the East. And this was during a seminar called Debate on Modernity for the architecture Aga Khan during the 1984. And when it comes to the modernistic design in Egypt, there was a set of influences that have led to the appearing of modernist design. The first one is the architects, which was during the liberal age, the influence of a new wave of local architects started to appear. Most of these Egyptian educated architects came here to Europe for their diploma, their masters, or their PhDs. And particularly in Liverpool, Zurich, and Paris. When they have returned to Egypt, they have contributed to the modernization trends. Their impact also spanned to other neighboring Arab cities such as Abu Dhabi, Amman, Nablus, Damascus, Medina, and Mecca. Another milestone when it comes to the modernistic design is the founding of this well-known art and architecture magazine founded in the year 1939 by the Egyptian architect Seit. These are the covers of a couple of a magazine, and to the right is the archive that is done thoroughly now by the Harvard University, and it's available online. And of course, it's very important for the research. Politically, the circumstances which have led to the late modernistic design is the socialist state, where the local architects were offered a considerable opportunity to realize their ideas through Egypt public housing program, and not only the private residences. As a result, the 50s and the 60s witnessed a proliferation of functional modernist design, where architecture design has possessed a clear international style, one that had prevailed in many parts of the world, especially in Europe during this time. And this era was also characterized by demographic growth, and so housing demand. So the architects who have returned from Europe has a chance to realize these. And now we move on to some examples. So these are two private villas, both founded at Heliopolis, the neighborhood that we just mentioned, and both are demolished now. They are realized by the Syrio-Lebanese architect Charles Ayroud, who was raised and educated in Cairo. They are both realized during the 30s. Another example for private enterprises also. And this is a villa of the renowned Egyptian singer Kulthum, if anyone have heard of her. Of course, it's now also demolished, unfortunately, and built instead a high-rise hotel. Another private residence, and this is for the Egyptian architect Said Karim. The one on the right is his own family villa, and to the left is another modernistic example residence in the modern neighborhood of Maadi. So when it comes to the public, the local architects were offered the opportunity to realize a more bigger public project. So this is the plan for realizing Nasr City neighborhood, which is next to Heliopolis. And this was during the 50s by the architect Said Karim, who was assigned this by the government. This is one of his modernistic building, again in Heliopolis. It's the building of the Socialist Party. Another public building, also by architect Said Karim. This one is outside Cairo in Mansoura. A third one also by the same architect. It's the building for the Akhbar al-Yom journal. This one is a part of the international market in Cairo and is produced by the architect Yahya Zeni. And this is the image of Nasr City layout and aerial view by the architect Said Karim, who was assigned this by the government. We have seen it in the previous slide was the model. So when it comes to the modern architecture outside Egypt, the Egyptian architects or the Egyptian educated architects has a great chance to realize modernist design outside Egypt in the other Arab neighborhoods. So for example, and also Africa, this is an example from the Niger Islamic University campus realized by architect Yahya Zeni, which I had a chance to be his student also in the University of Fine Arts in Cairo for my bachelor architecture before he passed away. And this was during the year 1977. And as mentioned before, this group of architects has a chance to realize architecture also in UAE, in Saudi Arabia, in Bahrain, Kuwait, and other Arab cities. Moving to the current moment in Cairo, mostly I found this image very expressive of the situation right now and the mass demolishing to these aesthetically modernistic architecture. And this photo is by the renowned researcher Muhammad al-Shahid, who is one of the very few researchers who are working and archiving the modern architecture in Cairo. Other than that, it's really like not addressed very much in research. So this is also part of a research for another colleague and architect, Adham Salim, and who is collecting like an imagery archive for the kind of architecture that is produced right now in the extensions of Cairo, unfortunately ignoring all the rules of not only of aesthetics and proportion, but also of materiality, of economic, and mostly of function again. So for me personally, the architects in Cairo urgently need to gain access and knowledge about the architecture of the past century to provide inspiration and points of departure and continuity to the future. And again, for me personally, the value of these modernistic designs which were displayed, I found no exact photo to express it, but for me the value goes beyond the aesthetics and the function to again, like the economy and most of the time environmental impact also, comparing to what's happening right now. And this is part of an ongoing research for me on this modern era, comparing upstairs the modernist design produced outside Europe, and below what's happening in Europe. So in an attempt to find a link of what's happening at what time. And I'd like to leave you all at this very well-known slide, and with the question whether modernism is imported or exported. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mahy Mourad, for these comments and for this contribution. I think especially the term indigenous modernity is highly interesting. I'm somehow sure we will come back to this term and also the question of import and export later during the day in the evening discussion.